Hi, I'm Leo Finelli, and you're listening to Generation Change. This month, we have an interview with Benjamin Kapit, a writer, director, producer, songwriter, and award-winning photographer, cinematographer, and composer. He has worked on projects of all kinds, from small indie films to videography for Caravan Palace on tour to photographing for an article in British Vogue. Benjamin founded his production company, Second World Entertainment, when he was 15, and his team is currently in post-production for 2 short films, 2 seasons of their show Apocalypse 92.7 FM, and the 2nd season of their show The Sunrise House. Benjamin is also currently working on his 4th indie pop album under the stage name Dreamers Club. He is on the autism spectrum and believes it makes him a stronger artist. So am I, and I feel the same way about my art. I spoke with Benjamin about his movies, music, photos, and journey. What is your name and where are you from?
Sure. My name is Benjamin Kapit. I am from Rockville, Maryland.
So I'm Leo.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to the pod.
Thank you.
So you're like a songwriter, a filmmaker, a technician, a sound engineer. You do all the work. So when did you first realize you had the creative bug?
Oh, man. As long as I can remember, I don't remember too much of when I was like a small child, obviously, but my parents tell me that it's been since I could speak.
So let's drop the pin and tell me about where you grew up. Rockville, Maryland. Is that near DC?
It is. So I went to high school in DC. Rockville, Maryland is a little suburban town just outside of city limits. It's like a good 15 minutes drive from DC proper. It's nice. It's small, kind of quaint, quiet. Not much goes on around here, but it was nice growing up here.
What direction from DC is it like? Where is it in relation to the city?
We are north of DC. Some people would argue that I live in Bethesda. I say Rockville, but I'm like right on the divide between the two.
So you went to high school in DC?
I did, yes.
Was this like in suburban DC? So like nowhere near like the National Mall, the historic stuff?
So it was in Tenleytown, DC.
Tenleytown near American University.
Yeah, right next to AU.
I've been to DC many times. My dad grew up around there.
That's awesome.
And when you were in DC, did you see the National Mall and the like iconic parts a lot?
I spent so many hours and so many evenings and days there either for like we would take class trips there, or I would just go with my friends to hang out at night to walk we would metro from the stop right next to my school down to the Union Station stop, walk to the Capitol, and then walk the entire length of the mall and back just after school for fun.
Been there a lot. I really like it.
It's a really great place. I like it here.
So after you finished high school, you went to college. What was that like?
College, very different. So I actually didn't technically finish high school. I do not have a high school diploma. I went there for 3 years. And after my junior year, I was like, this is enough. I've done enough of this. It was a very STEM focused school. And by that age, I knew that arts is where I wanted to be. So I dropped out and I went into an early college program at Bard College at Simon's Rock in middle of nowhere, Massachusetts. And it was very different. I had my issues with it. I had parts of it that I loved, but overall it is an experience that I would not get rid of in my life.
So what was it like to create your first movie, and what was your first movie?
So the first thing I did in that realm was actually a show. It was like a web series. And it was, Leo, I'm going to tell you, it was bad. It was a bad project.
Don't worry, my early screenplays were even worse.
I bet they're on like the same level.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is in the film world. The first couple projects that you make, they're going to be bad. That's like a law of nature. But it was fun. It was definitely a learning experience. And the friends that I made along the way are some of them I still work with to this day. And it's been like 7 years. It was a good use of my time because the project that I started with is called One Door Over. And you can actually see the poster for it right back there.
Yeah.
It got made like 3 separate times. There was the one that I made when I was about to start high school, and then I scrapped that because I got a nicer camera and kind of switched up the plot a little bit, and so I tried it again, and then we all went off to college, and I finally shot it in college, and it actually is it released, it won a best screenplay award at a festival that we submitted it to. So my first project, while bad, led to some really good things.
So Cecil B. DeMille, actually, his famous movie version of the Ten Commandments is actually a remake of a silent film when he was much younger. And I have years later gone back and revisited and rewrote pieces of writing that I did years earlier that I really liked or wanted to revisit or like saw a specific need for improvement. So how do you find actors to appear in your movies?
How do I find actors? It varies. Some of them I just kind of like know. I'm friends with them, and then they're like, I'm an actor, and I say, well, boy, are you about to be in my next movie? Others I find through film clubs. Some I find on Facebook and Instagram. I worked on a project recently called Apocalypse 92.7 FM, and the lead actress for it I found by posting on my Instagram story. I said, hey, if you want to be in this, DM me, and she DM'd me, and then we ended up working together for 2 seasons.
I actually have a few friends and connections who are actors, and problem is many of them are like SAG-AFTRA union members, which means they can't really like be in my short films, but I have learned a little bit about what it is like to act from these people that I have become friends with who act.
Acting is hard.
I took an acting class in college once. I wasn't really interested in like becoming an actor, but because of like my autism, I felt like there were lessons from the acting world and from acting schools to be learned for everyday life. And I wanted to learn that to become a better social actor with better social skills.
A lot of the masking that I do, I'm also on the spectrum. A lot of the masking that I do in social situations got better as I trained as an actor. So
what do you mean masking?
Like pretending it's like pretending that I'm not autistic in order to fit in. It's like an unfortunate thing that a lot of people on the spectrum, myself and some of my family members, are kind of forced into in order to fit into social situations. But the term masking really just means like shutting down certain tendencies that someone on the spectrum would have. And so I got better at masking as I trained to be an actor.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that you were on the spectrum too. Could you elaborate on that? Like, when did you first know and how did you feel about it?
Sure. So a bunch of people in my family are on the spectrum. So realistically, it could have absolutely been predicted. I think that I don't remember when I first found out, but I think that I started to really kind of accept it and work with it when I was probably around 17. Like that's when it really hit. I was like, oh, these differences about me in comparison to all of the other people at my school and that I work with aren't just like, they're not me centric, they're not me specific. This is a thing that other people deal with and that I can go to people for help. And there's research on it. I think that it was overall just very eye-opening for me to realize why it is that certain aspects of me are the way that they are.
Yeah, I remember finding out when I was like maybe 9 or 10. I had already kind of gotten the hint that there was just something about me that just made me different from other kids, but I didn't really know what it was until they told me.
Yeah, that's it was similar for me.
When did you start creating and recording your own music?
I started playing around on the piano when I like had fingers big enough to play around on the piano.
Well, that sounds familiar again.
There you go. It certainly wasn't like I didn't write anything good back then, but I just started playing around with it. And then as I got older and started taking piano lessons, I just got very into the music in film. I was like obsessed with Hans Zimmer and Michael Giacchino and
John Williams. I listened to John Williams a lot.
I'm going to get hate for this. I don't really like John Williams very much. I recognize what he did for film scores, and he is like the archetype, but I don't actually like his scores very much.
And why not?
I wish I could tell you, Leo. I wish I had like an answer for you. I think it's just like I feel that with a lot of art where I'm like I can look at it and recognize that from a technical artistic level, it is a beautiful piece of art that I just don't enjoy experiencing.
Wow.
I know that's like offensive to a lot of people who love film scores, so I apologize, but
don't worry. if Hans Zimmer had scored as many iconic films as John Williams, he'd have his reputation. I don't think it's the music for John Williams as much as what jobs he's gotten.
Very fair. And he also, like, John Williams did in a way redefine the composition of film score. If you listen to Hans Zimmer, if you listen to Alan Silvestri, if you listen to Michael Giacchino, all of that has elements of John Williams in it.
Yeah, sometimes they even do better with him. Who could forget the opening to Forrest Gump?
Very true.
So you score your own movies?
I do. I do score my own movies, partially because I love doing film scoring and partially because I don't trust anyone else to do it the way that I want it.
I trust someone else to do it the way I want it.
Well, you are a better man than I, Leo.
Okay, then. Thank you. And you're also an event photographer. So what kind of events have you photographed?
So my big brag is that I was the photographer and videographer for Philip Michael Scales and Caravan Palace on their most recent East Coast tour.
I suppose this is some indie band I've never heard of.
So Philip Michael Scales is like an indie dive bar soul artist, and he opened for Caravan Palace, and they are a very big French swing band, like electro swing band. It's kind of hard to classify them, but they're like very upbeat, kind of poppy swing music with like a very unique sound.
Wow, I'll have to check them out.
They're really good.
Any other unique stories from the making of your movies and music?
Ooh, the most like unique story that I could think of that came from my art actually came from my photography, which was a photograph that I took, like a photo shoot that I did for some people, ended up in an article in British Vogue.
Talented in so many areas, how does that make you feel about yourself?
I have severe imposter syndrome.
I think I kind of do too.
I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of people who are like, it's just that feeling of like, wow, I'm talented, but I'm not as talented as other people think I am. Can give you a story for this. So last night, this production company in Virginia held like an artist mixer kind of thing. So a bunch of people who were in film and acting and cinematography all got together and hung out in a room. But I'm walking around there and I'm talking to all these people with all of this talent, and they're, telling me, they're like, wow, you're really cool, you do all these things. And I'm sitting there like, God, I've tricked you. Like I've tricked you into thinking that I am this talented person when I'm just some guy who has a piano. I think that like my talents are, for me, less a source of like, ooh, look at me, I could do these things, and more just kind of a source of fun for me to do, if that makes sense.
Do you feel like as an artist there are any consistent themes across all your work?
Loneliness and the constant need and desire to do better.
I know both of those things well. How do you express those themes in some of your pieces?
That's an excellent question. It varies hugely piece to piece. I just shot a film this last weekend, and one of the lines of dialogue in it that I was talking to the actors, I was like, this is kind of the theme of this film. This is like the piece of dialogue, is character is being kind of, rude's the wrong word, but flippant to another one. And she's like, wow, that was not super great of you to say. And the other guy says, who cares? I'm right. And she says, you don't have to be right, be kind. He says, there's no point to being kind. And she says, there's always a point to being kind.
So you've also volunteered with one of our previous guests, Chessie Prout. I feel like I saw that you volunteered with I Have the Right To, which was Chessie's nonprofit, and she was on our podcast 2 years ago.
Yes, I do. I do some photography and other media work for I Have the Right To. I've never gotten to meet Chessie Prout, though I think I'm going to in the not too distant future, but we'll see. I'm going to a film festival in early March that I was just going there to like go to it because it's the Athena Film Festival at Barnard, and my eldest sibling, they work for Barnard, and they were like, do you want to just come up here and go to this with me? So I was like, absolutely, of course I would love to do that. That sounds awesome. And Chessie's short film that she worked on is being shown in it, and so some of the I Have the Right To people are going up there too. And I think I got invited to an event with them afterwards, and so my hope is to actually get to meet her there, because I've been working with her family but never with her specifically.
You would absolutely love meeting her. She was just the warmest, the kindest, and she was willing to have the hard conversations with me. And actually, I was on Anchor just yesterday and I was seeing that her episode is actually the most listened to episode of our pod.
That's awesome.
I still think it might be the best episode we've ever did. I really hope you get to meet her, and I can't wait to see her short film too.
I'm very excited to meet her. I'm very excited to see the short film.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
Sure. I'm happy to talk more about the projects that I'm working on.
Okay, go ahead. I'd love to hear more about them.
Okay, cool. So I'll start with music because that's a little bit briefer. I am currently working on a fourth album. So I've put out 3 albums that have like me singing on them, and then I put out a bunch of other albums that are just orchestral. And I'm working on a fourth album that has me singing on it. I've got most of the songs like written and recorded. I'm just kind of in the final stages of like fixing up vocals and mixing and mastering. I'm very excited for it. Once it's out, I will absolutely send it to you because I think it's my best work yet. And then there's an artist that I work with named, she's on Spotify right now, is Lelia. And I'm about to start producing her next EP. I think in sometime in the spring, I'm going to fly out to Chicago so that I can record for her. And then in film, I have these 2 projects that I am in post-production for, these kind of 2 larger projects. The first is called Apocalypse 92.7 FM. It follows a young woman who has survived the apocalypse and is holed up in a broadcast station attempting to broadcast her voice to an empty world. And we got very lucky to film that in the National Press Club here in DC. We got to use their broadcast studio, which was like, as like a tech geek myself, it was just like a little geek out moment getting to be in there and see all of the buttons and getting to press things. And I'm super excited for that. Most of what we have to do now is like visual effects, which is objectively the worst thing in existence. But I'm super pumped for that project. The people who made it with me are amazing. And then I'm working on the second season right now of The Sunrise House. The first season is out already, and we are in post-production for our second season. Same thing, actually, visual effects. It is a challenge, but I think those right now are my 2 best projects yet, and I'm very, very excited to get to actually release them and have the world see them.
How long is the longest movie you've made?
Okay, I have 2 answers for that. Movie standalone, it was 54 minutes and like 10 seconds. It is called Reality. It is that poster right there behind me. It is,
that's by American film standards, that is long enough to be considered a feature film rather than a short film.
I did, and getting to select feature when I put it on IMDb was like, it was like a rite of passage for me. I was like, at that moment I could have died and been at peace.
Yeah, I had never quite known what the boundary was until I learned quite recently that anything shorter than 40 minutes is considered a short film. Anything longer than 40 minutes is considered a feature film.
So I have heard that. I have also heard that 40 minutes or less is short. 40 to 70 is a mid-length, and 70 and up is a feature. And I don't know which one is like official by like film industry standards and which one is official by like other standards. All I know is that I got to check feature for Reality, and that's all I care about.
Yeah.
But so I do a lot of like, I put this in quotes, short form content. A lot of the episodes of these shows that I do, like Sunrise House, Wonder Rover, Apocalypse, they can range anywhere from like 3 minutes to 25 minutes. But the projects themselves, when stitched together, technically, like if you were to play the episodes back to back, Wonder Rover is about 120 minutes. Sunrise House season 1, I want to say, is 70 to 80. Season 2 is closer to an hour and 10. So like in terms of actual project length, around 2 hours, I think, is my longest project.
Yeah.
I get a lot of crap from my creative director because he's like, you can do a feature film because you've technically done it. So why don't you shoot an actual feature film? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I don't know why I can't just shoot an actual feature film, but for some reason in my brain, it feels so different shooting an hour and 20-minute long film versus shooting 12 10-minute long episodes.
Wow.
I don't know why it feels different, but it does.
Yeah. I've talked to several filmmakers on this podcast. I think my very first person I had on was a filmmaker, and we've had a few more since then.
I was partially as a tech geek and talking to them about their like cameras, but I just love talking to like other filmmakers and artists who are so passionate about what they do, because it's so nice to hear someone be like, yeah, this is what I do every day and I love it. It's the best.
Yeah, I love it. It's the best. Well, it was so nice talking to you today.
Oh, Leo, thank you so much for having me on this.
Thank you for coming on.
Bye, Leo. Thank you.
This was a fun one. I'm not sure if I've ever had someone on this pod who reminds me so much of myself. We're both creative in many areas, both on the spectrum, and both kinda geeky. I was really intrigued by the premise of Apocalypse 92.7. I can't help but wonder if this idea came out of the experience of the COVID-19 pandemic and the loneliness of the lockdowns 3 years ago. When it happened, when everything shut down, my family, the people I was locked down at home with, were the only people I had any regular interaction with. That's part of why I started this podcast in November 2020. I wanted to reach out to the world and to have conversations with people my age who were making change happen. This little podcast is my signal to the world. You can follow Ben at Benjamin Kapit Art on Instagram. If you'd like to recommend someone you know who is trying to make a difference to be on the show, or if you are someone trying to make a difference and would like to be on the show, email us at generationchange@leofinelli.com. Please follow us on Twitter and Instagram at GenChangeWithLF. That's at GenChangeWithLF. Follow and review wherever you get your podcasts, and just share this with your friends and others. Generation Change with Leo Finelli is hosted by Leo Finelli, executive produced by Julie Finelli, and edited by Nick and Leo Finelli. Our original music was composed and performed by Leo Finelli. Thank you so much for listening.